Okay, podcast number 17 with City Prosecutor candidate Ms. Megan Cow. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
And we are obeying social distancing and mask requirements for this podcast, so that's something new.
And there's also a provision in the order that allows for social media interviews and newscasting. So this is considered an essential activity.
Very good, right on. So this election, for the most part, the corruption issue from the past administration is clearly number one. So if you're elected, I want the goods. Who are you gonna fire? Who are these people that are like speculated like they're gonna have to leave or get fired, and why are you firing them?
So there are 4 people, and I don't want to name them. You know, it's a defamation issue. I don't want to disparage anybody, but they know who they are. They know what they did. You know, one of them is public, Chassid Sapolu. He has received a target letter, a subject letter. And so he really shouldn't be in that office. A subject letter is not something that comes out very often. In fact, I've never known of any other deputy prosecuting attorney in my whole, 16 years at the in criminal law to ever have received a target letter or a subject letter, other than Keith Kaneshiro and Chassid Sapolu. So, corruption is my most important issue because I was thrust into the midst of it. I not on purpose. I was contacted by the federal government. I brought to them evidence, witnesses, backstory, and so I was put in the middle of it. So these 4 people who are still there, they need to leave. And I do hear that might be happening on their own. They might be resigning. So I don't think it's going to be an issue where we need to terminate anybody.
Yeah, and that's such a huge blind spot that I don't get how government officials keep repeatedly making that mistake. So Donna Leong, who is head of corporation counsel for the government, basically has been on leave for over a year. And then just recently, she sent in a letter saying that she's retiring. But before that, Mayor Caldwell, who happens to be an attorney, was trying to bring her back and then reassign her to a different position. Can you explain to people the specifics of what it means to get a target letter, a subject letter, and why is it so inappropriate? It's obvious, but why is it so inappropriate for people to miss that you can't bring them right back to their old job?
A target letter means that the federal government believes that you did something wrong, that you committed a crime, and they're going to charge you. Once you get a target letter, you will be charged with a crime. I have not in my entire career ever seen a defendant receive a target letter and the feds say, "Oh, we changed our mind. Don't worry, we're not going to charge you." I've never seen that happen. So if you've received a target letter, you will be charged. The only question is, are you going to cooperate with the federal government, give them information so that they can continue their investigation, and hopefully get less time when you're sentenced? A subject letter, on the other hand, is a little bit different. It doesn't mean that the federal government actually believes you committed a crime, but the federal government believes that you may have been involved in a crime and that some of your actions are suspicious and warrant investigation. So it's a lower level, right? Target letter, you've done something wrong. Subject letter, we believe you've done something wrong. Your actions show that there's something suspicious, and we have reason to believe that you've done something wrong, although it may or not be a complete violation of the law. So it's a little bit different. Nevertheless, a target letter is very serious because that means the federal government believes you were involved in criminal activity. So to put someone back in their position where those actions led to this target letter or subject letter is a very bad idea. And it's because you now have access to the records that substantiate this target or subject letter. You can either change the records, delete the records, contact witnesses. you have access to the prosecution evidence. So it's a bad idea. Plus, now there's a taint on anything you do, right? So if Donna Leong came back just as a deputy corporation counsel, let's say in the litigation division, and evidence wasn't turned over, now the opposing counsel is going to say, well, she lied about it. Yeah. Obviously, she's under investigation by the federal government. She's not truthful, and the federal government believes she's not truthful. So now, hey, court, you should believe she's not truthful either.
It's crazy how we got to the point where she could even be considered, and it made news headlines that the mayor was considering just reassigning her. I don't see how that continues to happen, and that speaks to the corruption that happens every day in government. So a super hot topic issue that a lot of people don't know if it's constitutional or legal is when people get citations for the violation of stay-at-home orders. Do you think they're constitutional?
I think that someone should contest the constitutionality of Hawaii Revised Statute 127A. I believe that it needs to be challenged. My role as a defense attorney could be that, but I'm not a constitutional lawyer, so it would be out of my realm of expertise. But I am helping a number of people. I mean, my phone doesn't stop ringing, really. I have helped and am helping a number of people who have gotten citations. I mean, if you heard on the news, this elderly couple was eating in their car at a beach or I forget where it was, but in the public, and they were in their car, and they got cited. And I mean, that's appalling to me. I mean, we have privacy rights. We have constitutional rights that cannot be taken away by the government. State government, federal government, local government. We have inalienable constitutional rights. They cannot be taken away. Eating in your car in your own privacy is a privacy issue. It's a Fourth Amendment violation once the government comes in, searches your car, or seizes you by issuing a ticket. Same thing in your home, right? This notion that you could have a boyfriend or girlfriend that lives in a different home, but your boyfriend comes over and now you're in violation of this COVID order. I mean, you are in the privacy of your own home. The government cannot intrude on that. And so I believe that the government has overstepped its boundaries, and these tickets that are being issued, the majority of them do not have probable cause. And that's the problem. So, you know, my role right now is a defense attorney, and so I help these people pro bono for free. If I was the prosecuting attorney, I would have to do the same thing. Look at it to determine if what the police were doing was okay. Did they have probable cause to issue this ticket? And if they didn't have probable cause, the case must be dismissed.
Wow. Yeah, that's really good information, because a lot of people have been pushing back on the constitutionality of not being able to protest peacefully. Of course, if it turns into rioting, that's a whole different thing, but peaceful protest and just the intrusiveness, that's another angle. I'm glad you added that. So in the world of all that is legal, there's government attorneys and then there's private sector attorneys. Unfortunately, I feel as though sometimes there's been like a dog whistle, all the dogs can hear it, but it might not be audible for everybody, but the dogs hear it. I could tell that you've been questioned about your successes, both in the public sector as a government attorney and in the private sector. And I've even heard really bad rumors like, oh, she's just going ahead and running for city prosecutor because she's trying to get a job.
Yeah.
Can you please explain your successes on the government level attorney, and then also as a private attorney, explain your successes and what this means for you financially?
Yeah, sure. So I have a private practice, and you cannot be a private prosecutor. So people have to understand that in order to be a deputy prosecuting attorney or to be a prosecutor, you have to be employed by the city and county of Honolulu. You cannot open your own practice and be a private prosecutor. It's just not allowed. You can open your practice and be a criminal defense attorney or a civil litigator or a tort attorney. So I can sue Sam's Club for people that fall and break their knee because it's wet and they haven't cleaned it up. I can sue helicopter companies because people have died in their helicopters, and I can sue for the loss of life. And I can take, big companies that are fighting against each other, that are fighting over assets. I can represent one company and fight for my client's position, requesting the assets. So that's what I do. And financially, your question was, it's a huge financial sacrifice. I make about 4 to 5 times as much as I will make as the prosecutor. So it's a huge financial sacrifice for me to run for prosecutor.
Thank you for that. And although I'm not sure how much into detail you can get into this, but I feel as though sometimes there's a stigma when it comes to going private, because I think you're bold when you leave the comfort of a government job, which when you get a government job, a lot of times it's almost like a lifetime appointment because it's very difficult to get fired when you're in the public sector. And then if you go into the private sector, you have to earn every client. So what was that transition like for you to sink or swim in the private sector?
Yeah, it really is sink or swim. I mean, you have to bust your okole to run a private practice. And I've been doing that for the past 10 years. I've literally built my firm over the past 10 years. And it's scary because you don't know if you're going to make money. You don't know if you're going to be able to cover the mortgage. I mean, it's super scary. And, when I first started out, I was very grateful because a lawyer let me use an office for free for the first 6 months because I had no idea if I was going to be able to make it or not. I didn't know if I was going to be busy or get clientele. So it was hard. Now, because I'm established, I get a lot of cases and I have to turn a lot of cases down. But yeah, working as a deputy prosecutor, you get a paycheck. You can be as great of a deputy prosecutor as you want or not. I mean, and we see that in all professions. It doesn't matter whether it's legal or non-legal. We see that in all professions. But I did work very hard as a prosecutor. I won very big cases. I lost some cases too. So you get paid whether you win or lose. You get paid whether you do your job or not do your job. Mm-hmm. As a private attorney, that's not the case. People talk, this is a very small island. So if you don't provide very good service, you don't get clients. So, but I am very good at communicating with my clients, having my staff communicate with my clients. If it weren't for my staff, whom I love very, very much, I wouldn't be able to run for prosecuting attorney. But I have put myself in this position. I have busted my okole over the past 10 years to get to the position where my practice runs smoothly because I have great employees and they carry me, and I can take 90% of the day and run my campaign.
Wow, that's important that, you're doing it it's all on you. I've been blessed, and I'm like a second generation bail bondsman. If I have a question, I could just ask the expert, my dad. This whole family business, I have that advantage. Did you have any sort of advantages that helped you get through things? Because it's kind of unclear what your family situation was like growing up. Could you go into that?
Yeah. No, I had nobody from when I was very young. And I knew from a very, very young age, I'm talking about 8 years old, that nobody was going to take care of me or my sister. So my mother is she has her own dependency issues. She suffers from mental health issues. So, my sister and I had to live on the streets at 15 years old. And I haven't seen or heard from my mother in 25 years. I mean, I don't even know where she is. She's somewhere on the mainland. My parents were divorced very early on, but my dad had his own addictions, crystal methamphetamine. And so I didn't know him for a very long time. But when he was older, I did take care of him when he got sick. So yeah, we didn't have anybody. Nobody helped us. Nobody, I couldn't lean on anybody. I couldn't ask anybody for direction. And there have been times that, I just cried every single day because I didn't know what I was going to do, So yeah, it was tough.
Well, that's what builds you into the person that you are today, right? It's that pressure that like builds the diamond and it's rock hard, right? You got to go through that. So I respect that. Thank you for that story. So when it comes to like rehabilitation, it seems like you have like a really unique angle because of what you just explained with your family. You've also been very outspoken and you've been a supporter of the Habilitat rehabilitation program. Why are you so high on the Habilitat program?
So that's not to say that the other programs are not good. It's just that the criminal now is not the criminal that we were looking at 20 years ago. So you cannot just treat the addiction. We have learned that we have to not just treat the addiction, but we have to treat the person. And what that means is, and most people cannot understand this because they have great families, which is a great thing, but a majority of my life, because I didn't have a place to go, I was living on people's couches, right? So I didn't have any responsibility to the home because I was just staying there overnight or for a couple of nights. So, I would sleep on the couch, grab something from the fridge and leave. I didn't have to make my bed. I didn't have to clean the kitchen. I didn't have any responsibilities to the home. And that's what we're seeing now, right? People that have drug addictions having kids, raising those kids in the drug addicted environment with violence, drugs, and crime. And so these kids grow up not having any responsibility because they don't have to make their bed. They don't have a mom or dad that wakes them up in the morning and says, "Okay, make your bed, brush your teeth, eat breakfast, clean up after yourself." It's very different when you don't have that. You don't have any responsibilities or anyone to that you owe anything to. So criminals are coming up and they've never been taught that. And what Habilitat teaches you is responsibility, right? Make food for yourself, and when you do, clean up after yourself. Wake up in your bed, and when you do, make your bed, right? Clean your bathroom, know when to relax, know when to work hard, and know when to celebrate without using drugs or alcohol. But the most important thing that Habilitat teaches that's very, very, very important that a lot of the other programs don't do, some may, but a lot don't, is they teach them a trade. They work for Habilitat for several months, and Habilitat gets part of that money, and the person gets part of that money, and they get to save their money to have a nest egg to move forward once they get a condition, once they graduate from Habilitat. So this empowers the person to be a productive member of society and to be independent, right? Because you need to have a job to feed yourself and to feed your family. So it's super important. And a lot of people don't have the ability to learn their own trade on their own. They just don't know how to do it. And Habilitat teaches that. So it's an overall program. It's not just a drug addiction treatment program.
Wow, that's actually quite revolutionary. I didn't know that because the big flaw in keeping people locally versus in Arizona is that trades program. People talk about wanting to be in Arizona away from their family just so that they have the opportunity to be in better conditions and to learn a trade or a skill. Here locally, you don't have those opportunities when you're in custody. So one of the solutions to help moving forward these people who are on the fringes would be programs like Habilitat. You kind of brought that to my attention, and I had no idea that they did that.
So I'll tell you, even though this is not my kuleana as the prosecutor, the Department of Public Safety needs to be headed by a director who understands this, because then he or she can retain a programs director who understands this, and they can start implementing these things into their programs.
That would be huge.
Yeah. So, pre-trial and post-sentencing, if there was that type of treatment, it would lessen the incarceration rate, because now we see less recidivism, right? Now they can get out early because they have a plan. You can't just get out of prison without a plan, right? You need a place to go, you need a treatment program, and you need to be able to work. So if you've never been able to work before and you have no skills, how are you going to fulfill that third requirement? You can't.
Do you think the Department of Public Safety is going to be able to sort of handle the current overcrowding in the jails? Like, what do you think is the future for them?
Well, first of all, this has been going on for over 25 years. This is not a new concept that OCCC is overcrowded. So to me, that tells me, I mean, I don't know who's been the director of the Department of Public Safety, and I'm not here to judge what they did or didn't do. That is not my area. I have no expertise in it. My point is, if it's been a problem for 25 years and it hasn't changed, we need change, right? We need something to change, whether it's the director of Department of Public Safety or the programs that they're implementing. Something needs to change. So the prosecutor cannot just say, oh, because the jail is overcrowded, we're just going to stop charging crimes. How does the community benefit from that? It doesn't. And in fact, it puts us at danger. So the Department of Public Safety is going to need to do something to address the overcrowding, whether it's have a pretrial services division where they can let people out without bail and supervise them appropriately. That means you need the proper amount of staff, you need the proper programs, you need the proper ability to monitor, whether it be by GPS bracelet or checking in every other day, whatever. I mean, there needs to be an alternative. But I'll tell you right now, you and I have talked about the December 2018 pretrial report to the legislature. Yep. It's not feasible. We don't have that right now. Mm-hmm. That's why we're stuck here. These guys can't post bail. People keep getting arrested, and the Department of Public Safety doesn't have an alternative to release them or to treat them, so we have less recidivism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's doing. That's why I always keep the report right there.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, not sure if it's in that frame, but it's right there. But yeah, no, it's important because you gotta have, like, they did the actual focus on that section, the pre-trial detainee, and they broke it down so that you don't have these, like, urban myths that, oh, it's people that are all just, people caught on marijuana cases and they're languishing, or people on nonviolent misdemeanors. It's actually a lot different once you look at the population and you look at the solutions, and then you realize, oh, there's no funding. That's why we're in this position.
Yeah. And, other candidates have made that their platform, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have the proper bail system. People are sitting in prison because of marijuana charges and they can't post bail. It's just not true. Those were false narratives, and that report proves that.
Mm-hmm. And even though I'm in the position as a bail bondsman where I'm the private sector guy, and I'll be the first to admit, I'm probably like a luxury brand. If you could afford to pay a bail bondsman, you could get your loved one in and out in an hour or two, and that's a luxury sort of service. What I've been screaming to everybody is, just because somebody's in custody because they're indigent, that doesn't mean that they have to post bail through me. If they don't have the money, there's the intake service center, there's supervised release, and reforms need to be done within supervised release because that's cash free to the defendant. Let's get them out somehow, but we need some sort of disruptive forces to make it cheaper so that we can get people out and actually supervise them, or fund the people that are actually there. That would be a great start, but whatever.
Well, part of that is the prosecuting attorney has to educate the legislature because legislators don't know about the criminal justice system. They only know what, same as everybody else, what they see on TV, what they hear on the news. The prosecutor needs to be a community leader and go out and educate people and say, listen, legislature, you do need to use funds to fund the Oahu Intake Service Center. You do need to use funds to create treatment facilities. You do need to use funds to treat the mentally disabled. So it can be done. It hasn't been done in the past, but that's part of what I'd like to do.
Yeah, and then now we have like the public pushing back and starting movements like hashtag defund the police, which is like terrible. But what the definition could also mean is just reappropriate funds so that maybe within the police department you have like social worker specialists so that not everybody needs to get arrested. Maybe a social worker, a counselor of some sort can help mediate a dispute, as opposed to, oh, now I got a charge, I'm in custody, I got to post bail, I got a record.
Well, I will tell you, police officers don't want to show up to bandage somebody that is homeless, that is suffering from mental health disorder and drug addiction. Police officers don't want to do that. That's not their job. You know, it shouldn't be. So if we can use funds for other people to do that, then yes. Arguments, they don't want to be counselors. You know, that's not their job. So yes, that would be a better idea. But crime, of course, they've got to be there. Anytime there's any type of crime, then they have to be there. It doesn't mean taking money away from the police so that we don't charge people with crime.
Yeah. And in my 20s, I thought like being a cop was a super cool job because you could like get a gun, you could like, you know, go out with a car, you're like that person of authority, you get to train, you know what I mean? I always thought being a cop is like a really cool career because you could start off doing one thing and then there's so much like different things that you could do within the department. Oh, you want to become a detective, oh, maybe you want to go to school, work in like CRD, the office and stuff. I'm like, this is an awesome career, but it's changed. The complexion has changed, and now there's all this heat on the police. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a different job today.
Yeah. It's very disappointing to see that movement. We need police, and we need to support our police department. That's very clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, like, the legal profession has been dominated by, like, men. Usually skewing older, usually skewing Caucasian, but that's the reality of what it's like in today's still legal game. You're a woman, and I feel as though you've been targeted as if, oh, we're gonna question her leadership skills, we're gonna question if she's supervised or managed anybody. I'm putting it right to you. What do you think your strengths are as a leader and as a manager? And then secondly, do you think this is only coming up because you're a woman in a male-dominated industry?
So, running your own practice is not something you just slide into. It's a lot of work. I mean, you build your clientele, you hire employees, and it's difficult to find very good employees. And once you get them, you train them and you supervise them. And I've been doing this for 10 years. And my strengths as a leader is that I listen to people. You know, we collaborate, and I mean, I do make end decisions, and the buck does end here, and I'm clear about that. But my staff, I have several employees. I believe that they really love what they do. I mean, they are very supportive of me, and like I said, if it weren't for them, there's no way I would be able to run for prosecutor. And I'm very grateful for them every single day. And I tell them that, you know. So I believe in democracy, right? I believe that everybody has a voice. So I listen, we talk about it, and I take those things into consideration, and I lead from the front, you know. I lead by example. And I'll tell you, that's a big deal in the prosecutor's office. My opponent has said he's not going to do any trials. He's just going to supervise, tell people what to do. They've had that already. Keith Kaneshiro came in 2010. He was very secretive about everything. Everything was done behind closed doors. He didn't introduce himself to everyone. He didn't say, hi, I'm your prosecuting attorney. Please feel free to come to me. It was a very closed door administration. And he led from the top instead of leading from the front, saying, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. And my opponent is going to come in and do the same thing. The problem is these guys are thirsting for real leadership. They want someone that's going to fight in the trenches with them. They want someone to show us this is how we do it. This is what we can be and the greatest that we can be. And they've told me that. So, yeah, I think part of it is, I'm young, I'm female, and generally speaking, the legal profession is in fact dominated by generally older Caucasian people, males. And, I'm not a I am woman, hear me roar, feminist lawyer. I don't do that. But I have been put in very uncomfortable situations because I'm young and female and Asian. And I'm not playing that card, you know what I mean? But I've sat amongst 12 lawyers with 6 clients at a table with all older Caucasian men. And one of them points to me, sitting across from me, and he says, well, you're very pretty, but what are you doing here? Oh. And I said, I'm here representing the Kissels. And he said, well, when you say representing, what does that mean? And I said, I'm the lawyer for the Kissels, and I represent them here. And I mean,
you should never have to announce yourself and then defend yourself for doing your job. Never.
Never. So, and then, I've been put in very uncomfortable positions with partners of law firms, and one in particular, older Caucasian male, who grew up in an era where talking to women in a particular way was okay, but it's not now. But the problem is these guys have done it their whole lives. They've never been reprimanded, that it's never been changed or addressed. And so they don't even know that what they're doing is not allowed, right? I've been yelled at by this male partner for almost 20 minutes. I mean, at the top of his lungs, because I answer emails very businesslike, where I'm the associate, he's the partner, and I say, this is the status of the case. Here's what the client thinks. This is how we need to move forward. And I get scoldings for not asking, how are you doing? How are you feeling today? I mean, and I'm being berated, yelled at as if I did something wrong for 20 minutes. And I'm just like shocked. I don't know what to do about it, right? So I left that firm, but I am a very strong, very independent, very resourceful female. And the reason, part of why I'm running, is I know that there are not a lot of females who have the financial capability to just get up and quit their job. They have mortgages, they have children, they have people relying on them, and so they stay in this type of situation, and it's very much like a domestic violence relationship where they're being berated and treated poorly, and they can't leave because they don't have any options. So when you talk about leadership, part of why I'm running is so that I can show young females that this is what you can do. You might think you cannot leave, but I did it, and I busted my okole, and this is how I did it, and you can too.
Wow, powerful. Thank you for that. So, Ms. Cow, part of your platform...
Don't call me Ms. Cow. It's so formal.
Okay. So Megan. Okay. So Megan, part of your platform is you're going to charge low-level crimes just as you would the mid and the high-level crimes. But for people like me, sometimes we equate that with the broken windows theory, where you charge all the low-level crimes like, loitering or sit-lie laws, or, just as me being, brown with curly hair, I think if you're gonna enforce and charge low-level crimes, what's to stop the police from stopping me, frisking me, finding a dime bag on me, and then I'm arrested, having to post bail, and then I miss my work or I miss picking up my kids next opportunity. So it's really scary to hear low-level crimes being charged, especially when it gets equated with like broken windows law theory. So what exactly do you mean by enforcing low-level crimes?
So when I use the term low level, I don't believe that these are low level crimes. This is what the criminal justice world has labeled these low level crimes. And what they're talking about is property crimes, generally speaking. But when I talk about charging all levels of crime, I'm talking about burglary. Someone comes into your home, right? Let's say you're at home sleeping, 2 o'clock in the morning, your security cameras pick this up, and your family, your child, your wife, your husband, whatever it is, you guys are sleeping, right? At 2 o'clock in the morning. Someone comes in, uninvited, unauthorized, illegally there, and leans over you or your loved one and is in arm's length reach of you or your loved one, doesn't hurt you, so there's no physical harm, but steals a laptop or steals an iPad or steals your cell phone, burglarizes your home, and we can prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, and this person leaves, should that person be prosecuted?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I have taken this position for 2 reasons. Number 1, prison saves lives. And, everyone has their own opinion about prison, but I'm from the streets. I grew up on the streets. I've lived in drug houses. I've lived in places people would be appalled about, My friends were drug addicts, criminals. That's the life you live when you live on the street. You can't avoid it. You don't get to pick and choose who you get to hang out with. I mean, that's your life, right? So now, 40 years later, my friends are recovered, treated, and owners of their own companies. And they've gone to prison and they've gone to treatment. And the reason why we are all successful, or they're successful, is prison saves lives. They went to prison, they had to choose between treatment and prison, and they chose treatment. And now they're all very successful. And I will say, they're the harshest on crime. These are the people that are very law and order, very unforgiving of people that continue to commit crime over and over, very unforgiving about the people that go out and violate their probation every single time. My friends say, throw them in prison. Mm-hmm. That's what they should do. You can't give somebody 20 or 30 chances on hope probation. You got to put them in prison. So that's the first reason why I have taken this very hard stance, hard line. I will not come off of this, okay? The second reason is we have seen an increase in violent crime. And I know my opponent disagrees with me, but I have talked with Stolen Stuff Hawaii, Michael Kitchens. I have looked at the posts. And just because the police are not enforcing, you and I know the police are not enforcing even violent crimes, assault, for example. You and I have a common client that we know was released for assault. Doesn't mean crime is down. All it means is it's not being enforced. It doesn't mean crime is down. We still have victims. So, the problem is do you know what happens when a criminal gets away with a low-level crime like the one I just described and doesn't get charged and doesn't get put forward through the justice system?
Run it back, Hanaho.
Hanaho.
Why not?
Hanaho.
Right?
They keep doing it, right? Because why force stop, right? They don't need to. No one's told them they have to. So, let's say someone burglarizes a home or steals a car for the 21st time, right? They've gotten away with it, been arrested, released, never charged. Now they say, the victim tries to stop the person and says, whoa, wait a minute, this is my car, you can't steal my car. You know what that person's gonna do? Use violence, right? They're gonna use their fists, a baseball bat, a golf club, a knife, whatever they possibly can, and now we're looking at homicide, murder, manslaughter, or some type of assault. Because this person has gotten away with it for so long that they're emboldened by the criminal justice system. They're brave, they're brazen, and now they're extremely violent. And this is exactly why we've seen this recent uptick in violent crimes, because the current administration has, for the past 10 years, implemented very poor charging policies. So people call it the broken windows theory. I call it the UCPV theory, unauthorized control of a propelled vehicle. And those are the crimes that I'm talking about.
Okay. Yeah, it's really important because everyday people, like, we want there to be enforcement of laws so that the crazy person in the middle of the intersection of Kapiolani and Kalakaua who's trying to direct traffic, putting themselves and other people in danger, but it's the same person you see there almost every day because it's on my commute. I'm like, oh, this person, now they're in the middle of the road today. Next time it'll be they're on the sidewalk. The other time they'll be like by the bus stop. Like, there has to be some sort of enforcement so that, you know, you can get to work or that you could walk into your storefront. You can't have situations where somebody won't move and then things escalate and now we have a crime of violence when you were just trying to get into your office. So it's super important that I think somebody goes ahead and makes a charge. But then I don't want to get harassed, you know what I mean? I don't want somebody coming into my car and investigating me or patting me down because I look a certain way.
Well, first of all, that wouldn't be able to happen. You need police officers need probable cause in order to search or seize someone, and that means the reasonable person would believe that criminal activity is going on, right? So, and even if they just pulled you over because you're dark curly hair, and they said, "Can I search your car?" and you said no, they could not search your car. And I see the stuff that happens on the mainland. I have seen the stuff that happens here, both as a prosecutor and a defense attorney. And there are some bad cops. The majority are excellent cops. They follow the rules. And I don't see that happening. I honestly don't see police officers forcing their ways into people's homes or cars. What I do see is they get consent. People don't know their constitutional rights. They think if a police officer says, "Can I look in your car?" they automatically gotta say yes. I'm here to tell you that's not true. Wow. It is your constitutional right to tell a police officer, "No, you cannot look in my car. No, you cannot come into my home." Right? If a police officer is knocking on your door and says, "Let me in, can I come in?" You have the right to say, "No, officer, please leave." And I've had 14 years of experience and never have I seen a police officer say, "Well, I'm coming in anyways and now we're searching your house." And I've represented many criminal defendants, and that is never the story. It is always, "Well, we let them in." Okay, and I'm like, "Well, why'd you let them in?" "Because it's a police officer and I thought I had to." You don't have to.
Yeah, that's super important that people know that you could just politely decline. And as long as you're not like a jerk about it, like, don't try to escalate things because it could get really gnarly.
Right.
But you could politely just say, "I'm sorry, I don't consent to that.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a statement to make."
That's the other thing. People
No
don't,
statement, yeah.
no statement.
Yeah.
People don't understand. Everyone in America, everyone here in Hawaii and all of America, we have the right to remain silent. That is our constitutionally protected right. So when a police officer says, "Well, tell me what happened," you can say, "Sorry, sir. Sorry, ma'am. I don't want to tell you." And they will write, "Okay, did not give a statement," and they'll move on. They will not beat you until you give a statement. I've never seen that happen, and I don't believe it happens here.
Yeah, so that's important that people listening and viewing this podcast know that you can decline. And as long as you politely, like, you do it in a polite way, that could help de-escalate things. But moving forward, if you're elected as city prosecutor, what are your views on like electronic filing, video conferencing? all of like the embracing of technology within, the judiciary, what's your stance on all things digital?
I am a tech person. My office is 100% paperless.
Nice.
Everything is paperless. We keep everything on a cloud. I meet with my employees maybe once every 4-5 months. I talk to them on the phone, we email, but they do their own thing. I do my own thing. I trust what they do, and they do very good work. So we all work remotely, except for my legal assistant who has to be physically in the office because she has to receive mail. But the judiciary has moved to paperless. The majority of cases filed are electronically, and so we don't have paper, we don't have messengers, everything is electronic. So I am all for moving forward completely paperless. I will say it's an issue with trials, though. For example, the defendant has a constitutional right to confront any witnesses against him or her. That cannot be taken away. And a video does not replace live testimony. So I see that as kind of being an issue. I'm not sure if our Hawaii Supreme Court will allow that. We have yet to see.
But what about like other hearings, like status conference, calendar call? Do you think the future, and would you like embrace teleconference or video conference for those types of hearings? Not, of course, a trial. That's a serious thing.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And what this pandemic has shown us is it's possible.
It's possible.
We're doing it. I did a preliminary hearing in the federal court on telephone. And I'll tell you why this is so significant. Because, first of all, there's hardly any preliminary hearings in federal court. Most defense counsel just waive it or give up the right to have it, and they just agree that their client can sit in jail. Well, I had a client who said, no, I didn't do it. I'm innocent. And he wanted to fight it. So we had to have a preliminary hearing on the phone. No screen. I couldn't see the police officer I was cross-examining. I'd never met him. I couldn't confirm he was who he was. I mean, we had to go on everyone's word, but I had to cross-examine him on the phone. You know how difficult that is? It's insane. But we got the case dismissed. I won a preliminary hearing in the federal court on the telephone.
Wow.
So my point is it can be done. This pandemic has shown us that, and we have to move forward using technology. It is very important. We become more efficient and productive deputy prosecutors or the prosecuting attorney.
Yeah, no, and I've always felt like when we have people who are languishing and they're in custody, if there is a way to fast track cases so that we could just resolve them, somebody wouldn't be sitting pre-trial for weeks or months on end. If we could just somehow use technology to speed up the process and get that person into a program, or if they got to go jail, like you said in the past, they got to go jail, right?
Yeah.
Very good. So in closing, do you have any last statements? I cede the floor to you, Megan.
I have stood for two things during this election. Number one is end corruption. Number two is bring change to Honolulu. And the reason why this is so important is I think people are really just sick and tired of seeing the same old. People are very sick and tired with the old boy network. And I am clearly not old boy network. I make waves, I shake things up when I have to, and I feel like I'm reasonable and objective when I need to be, but I stand up for things and I'm a fighter, and I think Honolulu would prefer that I be fighting for the victims and for Honolulu.
All right, very good. Nice closing statement. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you coming in on the podcast.
Of course, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right on, thank you.